Buying land can be risky, but I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about buying land in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm a real estate agent. I've been through this process many times. I've actually bought my own land. I've built my own house. I've pulled trailers off places. I've flipped homes. I got lots to tell you. But in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about buying land. We're going to tell you about the purpose, how that defines how you're buying land, the zoning laws, everything in the environment from flood zones to fire to soil to natural disasters and other environmental factors that you need to know about this area. Also, Perc test, what utilities you need to know about and how to get them on your property, from power, water to internet even. We're going to talk about restrictions and easements and the soil, whether or not it's good to build on the soil, and like we said, percolation test, whether or not it drains or not. We're going to talk a little bit about walking the land and knowing where your boundaries are, even if we don't necessarily have exactly the boundaries done by a surveyor. We're going to talk about the future developments. We're talking about rights and interests. Someone can be making money off your land without you even knowing it, and how you can find that out. We're going to talk about permits and safety, and calculating costs and the resale value, and also finding that real estate agent that will help you guide you through this buying process. All that and more, starting with the purpose. People buy land for all sorts of reasons. Some people want to build a house to live in on that, others want to start a business, and some people might want to use it for farming or recreation. Knowing your purpose will help you find the right kind of land that suits your needs. If you want to build a house, you might look for land in a residential area with good schools and amenities. If you want to start a business, you might look for land in a commercial area or with good access to customers. Features. Different purposes require different features in land. For example, if you want to farm, then you'll need land with good soil, good water access. That's a must. And if you want a house, you also need good water access. Actually, if you're out in the country, that's very important. You might also want it to be more flat and easy to build on. Otherwise, it's going to cost you more money. Cost. Knowing your purpose will also help your budget for the land. Some purposes might require more expensive land or additional costs for things like utilities or permits. By knowing the purpose for buying the land, you can focus your search on properties that meet your specific needs and make a more informed decision. It can also lead you to avoid buying land that doesn't suit your needs or is more expensive than you can afford. Number 2, what is the zoning and land regulations? Well, when you want to buy land and build something on it, like a house or a store, you need to check the rules made by the local government. These rules are called zoning laws and land use requirements. They divide the land into many different areas like houses, stores, farms, and they can say what you can and can't do in that area. For example, if you want to build a house in the area meant for houses, that's usually okay. But if you want to build a store there, you might need permission first. Those rules also say how big your building can be, how far it needs to be from the road, and other details like that. The first and foremost thing that you need to do is call your local county and ask them what the zoning is on the parcel of land that you wish to buy. Another good website is the GIS map for Hamilton County, if you're in Hamilton County. This is a map that shows of the Chattanooga area the best places to go. Although if you're out in the country a little bit, you might need to go to a different link. The website will show you zoning areas for Hamilton County. R means that there is a residential area, C means that there's commercial area, and A means that it's agricultural or farming. You can find a complete list of general zoning classifications here. You can also search in this website by address. Let's try this. Here's some Zillow land for sale currently. If you go to the top right search bar, you can just type in the address. And in the search, you can see that the land is in the yellow section shown R1, which means that it is most likely residential zoning land. Always double check by calling the county, though. There's other stipulations and there's different types of these residential areas. Always double check. Just call them. That's what they're there for, just to be on the safe side. It's important to follow these zoning areas and rules because if you don't, you might not be allowed to build what you want in that area or however many things you want. Maybe you want 2 houses, maybe you want a guest house and a pool house, or you want many different things on the property. You might only be able to put one building. It might specify that. So before you buy a home, make sure that your ideas for it fit the rules and zoning that the county has set up. Number 3, what environmental factors are affected by this land? When you're thinking about building on a piece of land, it's important to think about the environment around it. Here are some things to consider. Flood zones. Some areas are more likely to flood than others. Building on a flood-prone area can be risky and might cost you more for insurance because they require you to have insurance on your house, especially if you have a bank loan on it. You can use this link that I posted below to search for flood zone areas. Soil quality. The type of soil on the land is important for building. Some soil is better for building than others. Testing the soil can tell you if it's strong enough to support a building. Natural hazards. Some places are more prone to things like earthquakes, hurricanes, or wildfires. Building in these areas might require special consideration or construction to make the building safer. Environmental rules. There are rules to protect the environment, like not building on certain areas to protect wildlife. However, following these rules might mean extra steps and costs for your building project. Number 4, will the soil percolate? When you're buying land to build on, it's important to know if the land can properly handle a septic system. This is where a Perc test comes in, or a percolation test. The Perc test measures how quickly the water drains through the soil onto the property. This is important because if the soil drains too slowly, it can cause problems for a septic system, which is used to treat and dispose of the wastewater from the building. If the Perc test shows that the soil drains well, it means that the septic system can work effectively on the property. However, if the soil doesn't drain well, it could mean that you need a more expensive or complex septic system. In some cases, you might not be able to use a septic system at all. Before buying the land, it's a good idea to ask the seller if they have already done a Perc test. So for us, we had to go get a Perc test from a soil scientist who was separate from the county. It's not part of the county. They came out, they dug it, they looked, they checked the soil to see how well. They did this in several areas, and they said this area over here and this area over here is the best for your drainage. And they gave us a map, and we took that to the county, and they said, okay, we can prove that this will be a good place for your septic system. So you take that to a contractor. The contractor sees it stamped off. He has to be licensed to do septic systems, and he digs it, puts it in, and then bills you a lot of money. Number 5, how close is the land to utilities? When you're thinking about buying a piece of land, it's important to know if it has access to things like water, electricity, natural gas, and a way to manage the sewage system if it's not, if you don't have your own septic system. Even some things like internet, which isn't really a utility, but it is absolutely necessary some days, because if you're a remote worker, you need it. If the land doesn't have these essential utilities, you may need to factor in some cost of bringing them to the property. This can involve things like digging trenches for water or sewer lines, or installing electrical poles or wiring, or obtaining permits from the local government. These costs can add up, so it's important to consider them when deciding if the land is right for you. If the land you want to buy doesn't have access to public water supply from the county or city, you might need to dig a well, like we said earlier. Digging a well means drilling deep into the ground, hundreds of feet sometimes, in order to reach water. This can be expensive because it depends on how deep you need to go if there's enough water in the area. After the well is drilled, though, you'll need a pump to bring the water into the surface. Owning a well also means you have to regularly check the water quality and maintain the pump, which can add more costs. Personally, digging a well is the route we chose to go, even though we were given access to county water. For electricity, we had the Tennessee Valley Authority come in and install electrical poles near where we would be wiring our new building. But we went ahead and then hired contractors to dig underground so that the wiring could go under the ground and we didn't have these ugly telephone poles in the way. Number 6, are there any building restrictions and easements? When you're considering buying land, it is important to look at any rules or agreements that might affect what you can build on your property. Here's why. Building restrictions. These are the rules that limit what you can build on your land. They might say how tall a building is, they might say how far it has to be from the edges of the property, or what materials you can use. These rules are usually in place to make sure your buildings are safe and that they fit with the surrounding area. Some pieces of land that are sold in Chattanooga could be part of a subdivision. The subdivision will usually have a long list of rules, such as how small or how big your residence should be, whether you can split the lot or build more than one building, whether or not you're allowed to build a fence or have a farm or farm animals on it. So it's always good to ask for a building restrictions list when buying property, especially in a subdivision area that already has bought a large section and is dividing it off per home. Easements. An easement is a right that someone else has to a part of your property for specific purposes. For example, there might be an easement that allows a neighbor to have a path across your land to get to their property. Easements can limit what you can and can't do with your land because you have to make sure that you don't interfere with the rights of another person who has that easement. Or maybe it's the power company. The power company has a large power pole on your land and they need to get access to it in case something happens and it gets damaged or they can't get to fix it for the neighbor's electricity. Before buying your land, it's important to know about these restrictions and the easements so that you can make sure that they don't prevent you from using the land the way you want to. You might need to get permission or make special arrangements to work around these limitations. Number 7, what is the soil like and how is the topography of the land? When you're thinking about buying land, it's important to consider the type of soil the land has, not just for percolation tests, but also for building. Here's why. Topography. This is about how the land is shaped. Like if it's a flat land or if it's got hills or valleys, steep shapes, rocky areas can be more challenging and might need special planning and special tools to help build a house there. These areas can also be more expensive to build on because they need more work and they need special tools to make them safe to build on. Soil composition. The kind of soil that is on your land can affect how strong the ground is to build on. Some soil is stronger and better for building, while other types might not be as good. Testing the soil can tell you how much weight you can hold on the building and how well it drains water, and if it's likely to wash away. Personally, we had to hire soil scientists to come out and look at all the soil in the area and tell us just how good the soil is. Fortunately, our soil is made with lots of little tiny rocks and a lot of little tiny fines, so it holds things together really well. Building on a hill also means that you need better footings and deeper concrete, so it's important to get your soil tested when or before you buy the piece of land. It's highly recommended that you walk around a property as much as you can before you buy it. By walking the land, you can see if it's flat or if it has hills or if it has good drainage to keep the water out and not pooling in your property. This is important because it can affect how you use the land and what kind of building you want to put on it. Walking the land also lets you see any special features like nice views or interesting natural elements that could add value to the land. Pro tip, if the land is heavily wooded and on a slope, bring a drone along. if you know how to fly a drone. When we bought our land, we couldn't see the view from just walking around due to the hundreds of tall trees. Once we used the drone, we could see the potential view was amazing and the trees needed to be cleared. If you've been thinking about building on land, walking it can help you decide where you might want to put a house or other structures. Finally, walking the land helps you understand where the boundaries are, and it helps you understand how much land you're getting. Overall, walking the property is an important step in the process of buying land because it gives you a better idea of what you're buying and how you might use it in the future. Another pro tip, you can get little apps on your phone that give you a pretty good idea of where your land boundaries are, because sometimes they're not set up so you can tell exactly where the boundary is for a specific piece of land you're looking at because it's a raw piece of land. Sometimes the person that measures the land will put a little ribbon on a tree or in a branch or something, but you can't tell where the line is if it's going this way or that way, or maybe they put flags in the ground if you're lucky. But if you really want to know, you got to get it surveyed. That's the job of the surveyor. But typically they are very difficult to get a hold of because they're scheduled months in advance. A survey is kind of like a detailed map of the land that shows exactly where the boundaries are. This is really important because it tells you exactly where you are, where your property is, and what you have bought. Do you own water? Do you own that little hill over there that you can put your house on? If the land hasn't been surveyed, you might need to hire someone called a surveyor to do this. They will measure the land and mark its exact boundaries. It's going to add to the cost of buying land, so it's something to keep in mind when you're planning your budget. Knowing the exact boundaries of the land is important to understand so that you know what your rights are to what part of the land that you're buying and building on. Are there any future developments in the area? When you're thinking about buying land, it's smart to think about what might happen in the future around the area. Here's why. Planned developments. These are things that might be built near your land in the future. For example, there might be plans to build new roads, shopping centers, or even a new neighborhood. Knowing about these plans can help you understand how the area might change and how it could affect your property. Will all the rights and the interests come with the sale of the property? When you're thinking about buying land, it's important to know exactly what you're getting with the purchase. This includes understanding all of the rights and interests associated with the land that will be included with the sale. Some lands have additional rights, oil, mineral rights, which will allow others to extract oil, gas, or minerals from the land. Not just you. Let me make that perfectly clear. Some lands allow other people to take things from it, not just you. So you make sure you know what your rights are on this land. When my wife's family bought land in Texas, they found out that there was an oil company drilling nearby that pays the neighborhood a share of the profit because of the well drilling. Because of that, the company continuously throughout the year sends random amounts of money to her parents as they make profit on drilling the oil. Because what they're taking, even though it's on another property, it's taking from the oil reservoir underneath their property. When my wife's parents decided to sell their home when they moved, they did not include the rights to the oil drilling as part of the sale of the house, which meant that the new owners did not receive the oil checks, but rather my wife's parents, who have now moved to different states and no longer reside in Texas, continue to receive that check. That's a possibility. You can sell your rights to receiving money from underneath the land, or keep those rights for yourself. Make sure you know everything about your land before you buy it. It's crucial to clarify if these rights will be a part of the sale, as they can significantly impact the land's value and future use. If these rights aren't included, it might limit your ability to benefit from the resources found on the land. And understanding the status of these rights is essential for making an informed decision about the land purchase, as it can affect the potential for development or investment. What kind of permits and approvals will I need to build on this land? Before deciding to buy land for building, it's important to understand the local rules for getting permission and approvals. Building permits are official permissions from the local government that allow you to start building. They give you a permitted build. That's what it's called, a permit. These ensure that your plans follow safety rules and regulations for how the land can be used. Environmental assessments check how your building might affect the environment. This can include examining the soil, water, wildlife, and the area to make sure that your building won't cause any harm. Local approvals might be needed for things like changing how the land is used or getting special permission from certain types of buildings. It's also important to follow these rules, because not getting the right permissions could mean having to stop building or even paying fines. Sometimes understanding these rules can be tricky, so working with experts and architects or engineers who know about the rules can be helpful. Understanding permits and approvals is also important, because it helps you make sure that you can build what you want without breaking any rules or causing harm to the environment. Talk to a general contractor. That's essentially what we're saying here. Someone that understands this stuff and knows the process. If you don't, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble, a lot of headache. When we built our house, we had to, number one, we drew it out, then we brought it to an architect. And we thought, well, that's all you have to do, right? They printed out these giant blueprints and we brought it in. Well, no, we have to get it engineered after that and make sure that the architect did the right thing, that all the loads and beams and everything is calculated so that it can hold up in the property. So we had to engineer the foundation of it so that there was the right amount of concrete under it and the right amount of footers under it. I mean, everything has to be checked and rechecked, and it costs money, but that's what a home costs. And then the county had to approve it. They had to stamp it and say, yeah, we agree with the process, and we don't see any problems here. You can go ahead and do this. Only after that was the contractor allowed to come in and start working on it. And then once he was done, the county come back out and they'll say, yep, you did it according to what we said you could do. I looked at the plans that you gave us, I looked at what you did, and I looked at the plans again, and they match. That's how it works. Number 12, what are some of the costs of needing to improve this land? Before you decide to buy land, it's important to think about how much it would cost to get land ready for the building. This includes things like cleaning the land of trees and obstacles and making the ground flat and even, which is called grading. And adding any landscape you might want, you will also need to think about how much it would cost to build this kind of building that you would want on the land, like a house or a store. All these costs add up and can be a big part of your overall budget for the project. It's important to factor these costs in when you're deciding if you can afford to buy the land and build what you want on it. Take it from me, I bought a piece of land because when I first saw it, I knew that after removing all the trees from the top of the hill, I was going to have a nice view because the land slopes upward to a hill. But then comes the challenges of building on a hill and the fact that we have to cut a piece of that hill out in order to have a platform to build the house. But also the fact that since the land we bought was also very wooded, we had to pay a lot of money to get all that wood removed, burned, or logged away. All these become extra costs that need to be taken into consideration when you plan to build on a land that is more rural. Also, you got to think about the driveway. You only have so much slope that a regular car can go up unless you get like a Subaru all-wheel drive or a Jeep. If you have a regular two-wheel drive car or an electric car, you're going to have to make sure that the slope isn't very good. Maybe do some winding up the road and trying to get up to the top of the hill. Unless you want to put in $50,000 of concrete driveway, depending on how long it is, expenses add up. Because if you can't get all the way up that hill, and Tennessee, Chattanooga is very hilly, you never know if you're going to be able to make it. You might have to incur an expense in order to get the view you want. Number 13, what will the resale value of this land be? When you're thinking about buying land, it's a good idea to think about the potential value in the future if you ever decide to sell it. This involves looking at things like where is the land located, what is the amenities that it has nearby, and what is the real estate market like in that area. Even if you're planning to build your dream home on the land and live there for a long time, it's still important to think about the value in case your plans change down the road. For example, if the area becomes more popular or if new developments are planned nearby, it could increase the value of your land. Thinking about the resale value can help you make a smart decision about whether the land is of good investment for the future. This is where a good real estate agent can help by looking at the comps in the area to make sure that you make the right decision when looking to buy a piece of land to build. Number 14, who is a good real estate agent that knows a lot about buying land? When you're buying land, it's important to have a good real estate agent who knows a lot about buying land. They can help you navigate the complexities of buying land and ensure that you make a well-informed decision. And that's where I come in. I am a Chattanooga real estate agent with personal experience in buying land and building, and I'd love to help you find a piece of land here in Chattanooga. I have bought many properties, I have flipped many houses, I have sold and renovated many other places too. I have pulled trailers onto properties, I have gotten rid of things that didn't need to be on the properties. I know real estate. So if you're thinking about trying to find a good deal, call me. But last but not least, number 15, how is my finances? When you're thinking about buying land, it's important to consider finances. One thing to keep in mind is that banks are often hesitant to lend money for undeveloped land. This means that if you want to buy land, you'll probably need to have some cash saved up to make the purchase. Banks see undeveloped land as a riskier investment because it doesn't generate income like a property with buildings. Because of this, they're more careful about lending money for land purchases. If you do manage to get a loan for land, you'll likely need to make a large down payment, larger than you would for a house. This means that you'll have to have a significant amount of money saved up to cover the down payment. Like in any given place, there are pros and cons when trying to make Chattanooga your new home. However, if you're intrigued by the idea of relocating to Chattanooga, starting a fresh chapter, pursuing your dreams, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'll be delighted to help you find your ideal place in the scenic city. Give us a call, shoot us an email, or take our move survey in the links below, because we're happy to help you make a smooth transition to your next destination. Check out our next video coming right up, and until next time, we hope to see you around town.